beautiful people. Welcome, welcome to our Power Sip. We're delighted you have joined us, whether you are here with us in this space or live streaming on my YouTube channel. I am your host, Glenda M. Francis. I'm a professional life coach and the founder of Audacious Inner Works Institute. Just a little bit about who we are. Audacious Inner Works Institute is a personal development and capacity building service organization with a focus on women's wellness and power. Our mission is to power you to live and lead from the strength of who you are through our life coaching and capacity building offerings and programs such as tonight's Power Sip. In celebration of Women's Herstory Month, we are proud to present our Power Sip panel discussion in radical pursuit of her vision, lessons, and inspiration along the way, featuring 4 audacious women who are in various phases of their personal and entrepreneurial journey. Let me present our panelists. Marcia Prioleau, financial planner, New York Life. Analeah Henderickson, founder and CEO, Greater Edge Inc. Erin Friedman and Rayda Marquez, co-executive directors, Cultural Connections Global and the Association for World Travel Exchange, Inc. And on behalf of AIW, I'd like to thank our dear friends, Erin and Rayda, for hosting us in this beautiful space. We are live because of them. Thank you both. Thank you. Here's how we're going to facilitate tonight's discussion. We're going to set the stage for our discussion by first exploring the notion of radical pursuit. What does that mean for us? What could it mean for us? What does it afford us? You'll also have an opportunity to reflect on this concept and share your thoughts. Please do introduce yourself if you choose to share, as we love to build connections and community in our work. And we ask that you lead from a place of love and best intentions. To our live stream audience, feel free to engage in the chat, and we'll do our best to integrate your comments. For the featured presentation that follows the brief exploration, I'll formally introduce each guest speaker, and she'll have about 10 minutes to present about her journey. This will be followed by a 5-minute Q&A where you'll have another opportunity to share comments or ask questions directly to the speaker. And if you've already forgotten everything that I've said, it's okay. It's my job to guide you. I've got you covered. All right, let's dig in. So here's our opening question. What does it mean to you, to you, to you, to be in radical pursuit? So if you've ever been in radical pursuit, what did that mean for you? If, on the other hand, you've never been in radical pursuit or you aren't sure what it means, I'd like you to imagine what this concept could mean for you. So I'd like to invite you now to reflect on this for about 30 seconds, and then we'll hear from our speakers. So what does this notion of radical pursuit mean for you? All right. So we're going to start with Analeah. So Analeah, tell us, what does this notion of radical pursuit mean for you?
Well, when I first looked up the term radical, I thought to myself, okay, what does it actually mean? So, being a bookworm, I went to the dictionary. The first term that stood out to me, the term radical was used to describe removing the root of a disease and potentially diseased tissue. Another one has to do with radical acceptance. When we're in distress, this is a skill that prevents our inner pain from becoming suffering. It means completely and totally accepting with mind, body, and spirit the things that we cannot change. These explanations are kind of negative. So, on reflecting on radical pursuit, for me, it means I have a choice to take the circumstances that I've been presented in life and use it not as a weakness, but as a fuel to help build inner strength, needed to actually face and then conquer the things that I can't control in order to fulfill my dreams. And currently, I'm in radical pursuit of being a great mother, role model, and entrepreneur.
What about you, Marcia?
If this question was posed to me 3 years ago, I would not have known how to respond. I was not thinking I was in radical pursuit because I did not even know what it meant. But my journey has led me to discover that being in radical pursuit was a call on my life for a transformational change. I realized I wasn't living life. I had just chosen to accept life. So, radical pursuit was about me rediscovering who I am and how to live life with an intention.
And I'm sure later in your presentation, you'll say more about what that intention is and how you came to this awareness. Very nice. Erin, talk to us. What does this notion mean to you?
For me, radical pursuit is really about pursuing work or service. For some of us, those two things are very interchangeable. But pursuing work or service that's meaningful to me, letting go of doubts and fears that can hold me back, or if it's relevant to you, holds you back from really what drives your purpose and your life's mission. I really believe that all of us are put on this earth to do something more than simply exist. That we all have somewhere along in our journey something that's calling us for something deeper and bigger than ourselves. And so for me, being in radical pursuit is leaning in and having the confidence to do something bold, something that may be filled with uncertainty, something that absolutely will be filled with challenge, potential setback. But being in radical pursuit means that you persist, you persevere, and you keep moving forward. And for me, it's an ever evolving process. I've used this phrase for a long time, that I don't believe that we ever have fully arrived, and that we're continually learning about ourselves, about each other, and about the world around us. And so for me, that's how I interpret that.
Mm-hmm. Before I get to Rayda, it's so interesting because in some ways you are expanding on what Marcia shared. This idea that if you're pursuing a purpose, then you've got to know who you are. Then you've got to know what is that thing inside of you that's moving and seeking expression. And so if you're not connected to that, or you're not aware that there is something seeking expression, it's hard to live a purposeful life with intention. Yeah? So wonderful. Rayda, what about you?
Well, for me, all of the comments resonate with me, because for me, living a life with purpose is very important. And a few years ago, I thought, I am ready now to go ahead and pursue what I thought was my purpose and my endeavor. But it was all related to work, because for me, living a life with purpose was focused a lot on what I could do through work. And in that pursuit, I had a rude awakening, right? Because I received a diagnosis that was unexpected and made me reflect and think about myself more wholly, right? So not only what I could do, but think about myself, and we were talking about wellness, the importance of taking care of ourselves, inside and out, if we're going to live that life of purpose completely, right? And able to give to others. And so radical pursuit for me is finding also not that balance, a personal balance, and a balance with the work that I do.
So funny you said balance, because the other day Well, for a while now, I've been thinking about this notion of balance, and I think the way we talk about balance is problematic. And I think the visuals and models we have for balance are problematic. I think this notion that um, there are things in our lives that are important that we prioritize. And when you're in pursuit of those things, at certain times, those things get more of your attention. And that means other areas of your life then get less attention. And so the balance is about this is where I'm focusing right now. And then now I'm going to shift my energy eventually to give back. So rather than thinking about a pan scale up and down, I think about it as a wave. There's this movement, right? Like, how are you moving across time to sort of bring these priorities together, right? Because it is not possible to have all of these things in play at once. Something is going to give, right? But this up and down model feels problematic to me because you think, well, I'm giving here, but not here. But it's recognizing right now, this is where my attention is. And at other times, now I'm going to feed this and making peace with that sort of arrangement. I wanted to share some thoughts about how I think about radical pursuit, and then I'd like to invite you in. And so for me, I am more often than not in radical pursuit of some vision or goals. And so what does it look like for me when I'm inhabiting radical pursuit? And so when I reflected on this question, three key principles emerged for me. First and foremost, fundamentally, it's about taking responsibility for my vision, right? So I have this vision. So what does that mean? So there are three dimensions that I want to talk about. One is incubating that vision, allowing the energy of that to surge through me, right? That's really important. And allowing it to expand my imagination of what is possible. It's also developing an emotional bond to it. So that's about talking it out loud, singing about it, mapping it out, right? That's the emotional bond. Envisioning my life having attained it so I can see it, I can feel it, I can taste it, right? And of course, it's about cultivating it so that I can bring it forth in the physical realm. And part of that is having a spiritual alliance. That means that I need to leave space for divine intelligence and guidance. And I need to be obedient to spiritual downloads, right? So meaning it's not about saying, no, this is the way it's going to go, when divine says, this is how it is going to go, right? So I'm not always in charge. So being able to say, whoa, okay, I'm getting this information that I can use. So that's the first part, taking responsibility for my vision. It's also, I heard Erin talked about this idea of persistence, perseverance. So it is about having a single mindedness of purpose and focus, that I am in this drive to achieve these milestones and these particular goals. But how am I doing that? So I need to make sure that I'm operating in love, in faith, with best intentions, with energy and passion, because all of those will fuel this vision. What I add to it will be what comes out at the end. And then the other part, the third part for me, is safeguarding that vision. And so here I talk about protecting my vision from what I'm calling low vibrational energies. People who lead with fear, whether consciously or unconsciously, they could be family members or friends, but they project their fears and their limitations onto you. And before you know it, you find yourself second guessing what is intuitively or what feels intuitively true for you. So safeguarding your vision and also making sure you're aligning yourself with other people who are in radical pursuit, right? Because then they can fuel you. That combustible energy can keep you moving in the direction of what's important for you. So the three principles that were key for me are taking responsibility for the vision, safeguarding it, and what was the third one I said? Having a single-mindedness of purpose. All right. So we've shared our thoughts, and we'd love to hear what you think about radical pursuit. If you've ever been in radical pursuit, what did that mean for you? What did it feel like to be in pursuit? What did it afford you? So we'd like to invite you to share your thoughts about this, and please do introduce yourself. So who'd like to share? Hmm. Lovely, this lovely young lady in the beautiful orange in the back. Is it on? Okay. Do you mind passing this back? Thank you. So we've got a mic. We're passing the mic, ladies.
Yeah.
Share the mic.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Corinne. I'm Glenda's niece. Um, when I think about radical pursuit, I immediately think of my two children. I have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old. And when you think about the persistence of a child, when they're so dedicated to, like my 9-month-old, when he really, really wants to touch something, it doesn't matter what's in front of him. Doesn't matter how many times you try to redirect. They're like, no, I just really need to try this. So I think your creativity, your curiosity, has to weigh a lot more than your fear in order for you to really, really believe that you can, get something done, or to just try it. And even if it turns out to be something that it's not, at least you went for it, and don't have the regret of not having tried it in the first place. So I think of my two.
Mhm. So we could think about that like the fear pulls, but the vision and the creativity pushes, and whichever is greater will weigh out. Yeah, nice. Anybody else? Yes, thank you. Let's pass it up.
Thank you. My name is Paula.
Hola, Paula.
Hola. So it's so interesting that we're surrounded by mostly females in this room. And when I'm thinking about the prompt about radical pursuit, I see it as something individual. It's a lonely journey surrounded by barriers. And in my case, I did not see that with my elders. I did not see that example from my mother, my grandmother. And I don't know if it happens with other people. And it's a lonely journey because I was thinking about what you were mentioning about people projecting their insecurities. The way that I see it is people projecting the way to manipulate our energy and our space and our voice. And being radical, that's mean that you need to break down that cycle. And that is lonely because then you are going to bring a different set of, I will say, stigma around that when you're outspoken, when you are clear about your vision, and then you are identifying those barriers and you're trying to name those barriers. As a females, the lens that people look at us is through the lens of a caregiver, a mother, a provider, as something second, a supporter, but not as a entity, a unity that you can think for yourself and by yourself, and then you're able to move things forward. And I think that for many young girls, that journey starts earlier, but you can see the fulfillment at the end of many cases, barriers, pain, suffering, discrimination, tears. I don't see joy in that. I only see joy when you are able to set yourself free and understand about your inner power, what you're able to do and what you're able to accomplish. So that's the way that I'm seeing it. I'm curious to see if someone else feels the same way or not, because that was radical.
And you said so much there, Paula.
Oh my God.
Uh, I mean, let me say this. Are you finding joy in your life?
Yeah, finally.
Finally. So I would say you're in radical pursuit
Finally,
of
yeah.
what brings you joy and what feels true and peaceful to you. But you said something in the beginning that caught me. This idea of being a trailblazer. So it's not necessarily that being in radical pursuit is lonely. It can feel lonely, but particularly when you're a trailblazer and you don't have your tribe around you, right? You're going against barriers. You're defying conventions, and that's what it sounds like. It can feel very lonely. And so when you're a trailblazer and breaking those generational curses, you need in addition to your own fortitude, you need a tribe. And so I'm wondering if you have a tribe of people around you now who support you in giving you joy in what feels good to you.
It took me a while. I'm 47. And it took me a while. years, but finally, and it's not about the quantity, but about the quality
Absolutely.
and the support and what I'm allowing to let
Mm,
inside my inner circle, my
mm,
support system, because it is hard.
mhm,
Sometimes it's really hard just for you to allow to be vulnerable, to allow that support system to be close to you and share the same vision and support you in that vision, in pursuit of the vision.
mhm. That sounds like, I don't want to get into coaching, but that sounds like a scripted message that you're downloading, that you're not vulnerable, you don't let people in. Maybe that's connected to weakness.
More than anything else, is connected to being vulnerable and to be in situations where your greatness is being hindered by other things.
Mhm,
And you realize that you have your worth and your value, and it's up on the person ourselves to decide when we're going to let that shine and be shared with the world.
mhm. You're saying a lot. Let's share the mic. Let's share the mic because Paola she just opened Pandora's box. Let's share the mic. Would anybody else like to share or respond to what Paola has put down for us there?
Hi, everyone. My name is Martine. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And Paola, yes, you said a lot that was relatable. I would have to say that the journey for me has been, at times, it feels lonely. And it feels like you are being like a trailblazer and you are going against a lot of systems that you thought worked for you and then it doesn't work for you, or agendas of others, or anything in society that just doesn't sit well with you. It's kind of like, wait, how come that worked before? And I think when you get more in tuned and you become more truthful with yourself, those things no longer work. And I think for me, being in radical pursuit is listening to that spiritual discernment more than like my flesh, and overcoming some of the false messages that trauma has left. As a social worker, I was helping others do that, but I was neglecting my own self. So I think radical pursuit is like giving some of what I put out back into me, and overcoming that self doubt, to just do something brave. I think it was Erin. I think she said that being in radical pursuit is like doing something brave, doing something different that you're not necessarily comfortable with, because I'm extremely uncomfortable now in terms of
Mm,
my radical pursuit.
mm.
But I'd rather be that than being a lie. So
Ooh,
it's kind of like
wow, well
it
said,
works.
Martine. Wonderful.
Did you want to say something?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline, and I'm Glenda's sister, and I'm Corinne's mom, and my niece is over there. Hi, everyone.
It's a family
So it's a family affair. So
affair.
I'd just like to say thank you. I'm happy to be a part of the women's group. And being radical is not easy. We first have to figure out what that radicalism is that you want to pursue. And I'm going to speak right now from my gut because 4 months ago, I lost my daughter, and I didn't think that I'd be able to move forward. I didn't think that I'd be able to move. I thought that was the end. But so many different things are opening up for me now. And I'm feeling like a new life has just begun. And I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready to take on wings and just fly. I'm just feeling optimistic and positive, and I just want to impart that love to everybody else. That's it. Thank you.
We put our hands together for my sister Jackie. And for all of us who have dealt with loss, it is an incredible tension and space to exist, to be able to grieve and deal with loss. But then there's the push of life. And so you're having to make the decision, how radical do I want to live or do I want to fall over? Because this person who's meant so much to me, who's been my world, is gone. So who am I now without this person in my life? What an incredible tension. What an incredible space to be. And so for my sister to be here today and to share that, how audacious. How audacious. And sometimes being a radical pursuit is about taking small steps at a time. It's not always the grandeur, but putting that one foot in front of the other. And here you are. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. Thank you. I saw somebody else. Yes. First, do we have the mic? Yes. Oh, oh, she's monopolizing.
Um, just a couple of things to bounce off of what was shared. But Martine, you shared that you were a social worker, and that's what my trade is. I went to school for that. I have a background in psychology and social work as well, and um, I worked in it for years. Loved it, and then again, you mentioned being part of a system that no longer seems to be aligned with what your core values are. And so you start to feel this major disconnection because your heart is really meant to do, you want to do a certain type of work, but the parameters of the system is not allowing you to fully do that. And so one of my radical things, I share my children, but I look at them and there's so many lessons, right? And so I apply that same tenacity and drive to my own life. And the biggest change I made was to quit my job, and say something that you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing here, but allowing the drive from spirit and just your own intuition to really lead you. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but something is going to unfold.
Yes.
And eventually, I feel like when you're in that moment where you feel like you're flying and I don't know where I'm falling, and there's always something that catches you just when you think that there's no way this is going to happen, something always unfolds. And so it's something very special about just learning to adapt and then just listening in and learning to be flexible, because we may have 10 plans and they won't ever go, as it doesn't go down that same way as you planned out. But being flexible and allowing the flexibility, because it's when you resist that you create the most stress, the most
That's right.
anxiety.
That's
And so
right.
just allowing and saying, you know what, I don't know what's happening, but you do, so you just continue to guide me. And we mentioned death here. That was a physical death, but I think the radical pursuit is also the death of your past selves and letting that go. I think sometimes we hold on to it so hard, or you transition into something else. I'm totally doing spiritual work now that I never could have imagined, so I'm still helping people but in a different capacity. But it's in diving into that, I needed to let go of who I was in the past, and also let go of the image of what I believe people also put me in a box of. Oh, I thought she was just a social worker, there's no way. So completely letting those past ideals go, or not even letting it affect you, so that you can truly move forward in your own truth for your assignment here.
Taking that leap of faith, how radical is that? Stepping out when you don't see the bridge, when you don't know necessarily where you're going, but that there's something within you that says, this is the way. Yeah? And as you take a step, you build that bridge. You can only know it by taking that journey. If you don't take that journey, it doesn't unfold. So it's only in taking that step does it unfold. And the clarity, you gain clarity as you move along. Wonderful. What about anybody on this side? Any thoughts you'd like to share? Wonderful.
Um, Basically, what I'm kind of
Please introduce
understanding.
yourself.
Ah, yeah, right. My name is Rain.
Hi.
Marcia is my mom. So, what I've kind of what I've been hearing from everyone, and kind of what I've learned from, talking to my mom as well. Like radical pursuit is basically having like this goal, this vision of yourself, and working towards it, and having faith, but also having the flexibility to, because life is unpredictable and things do happen. Sometimes good things happen, bad things happen, but something that I heard a while ago is that life is always happening for you. So even when negative things are happening, they're always to build you, to make you stronger, to achieve and become that vision of yourself. That's what I got.
So what you're talking about, it's a mindset. So things happen to us all the time. How we make sense of those experiences determine whether we move forward, right? Or we perceive ourselves as a victim, or we stay stuck. So your mindset is these things are going to build my muscles. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get smarter. I'm going to be a different person, hopefully a better person on the other side of that, right? So kudos to you that you've got that mindset. That it's not going to break me, but it's going to move me. Nice. Wonderful. Anybody else? All right, we're nice and warm. We're ready for our presentation. Wonderful. So let's get into our presentation, and I think we're going to hear more illustrations of radical pursuit. All right. So if you've had a chance to visit the About page of my website, you might have already encountered our first guest speaker. When Marcia sought me out for life coaching in 2020, she was a divorcee with 2 young adult daughters living at home, and she had no income. She also had a common refrain: I'm stuck, and I don't know who I am. So how did Marcia go from being stuck to having no income to now being a financial planner with New York Life, sitting before you to talk publicly for the first time? Well, that's her story to tell. I present to you Marcia Prioleau.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you being here. And I'll give you some background story of me before I even begin. So it began for me this way. And it had everything everyone has said so far. You can see how it really relates to how our lives go, because we're all experiencing some aspect of it. So here's my story. About 8 years ago, I moved to North Carolina with my then husband and my 2 teenage daughters. My 2 adult daughters, they stayed in New York. My marriage was unstable and I was heading into divorce. My husband had left and he had closed the only bank account I had access to. So the fear for me was becoming homeless. It was wondering, what are we going to eat? How are we going to just make basic bills? And so we experienced a lot at that time. But I was a stay-at-home mom for so long, I was terrified to go back into the market. So that did not work out very well for me. I was unhappy, I was afraid, I was sad, I felt hopeless. My state of mind had begun to become so unhealthy that I started to question, is life really worth living? And I did this over and over again, and what kept me was my kids. And every time I would question, gee, why can't this be over? It was my kids that helped me to get her. So to top it off, I had my daughter who was away at school looking at me still for guidance. So that really tore me up inside. And then the younger ones, you know, they're looking at me and I'm trying to run back and forth with school and activities, and I'm forcing this smile on my face, like it's gonna be okay. Eventually, I made a decision to return to New York. It was home. So I felt the change would be good. So I headed back to New York. See, the question was radical pursuit, right? So at that time, I did not realize I was in radical pursuit, but I was. So after 2 years of living in North Carolina, I returned to New York. It took about a year, but I finally found a job. And I started paying off some of my debt. So I began to feel alive again. But what happened? In 2020, COVID hit. And with COVID hitting, I was once more unemployed, plunging into debt, and in deep misery of the uncertainty of my life. I was afraid for my future. Months went by, and all I could feel was mentally exhausted. That's all I felt. There were many nights and days that I really just wanted to curl up and cry. And I'll be honest with you, I did. A lot of times I closed my door and I did. I cried. There were times I only had energy to just get up and take a shower. And I would sit in the sun. I couldn't cook. I couldn't clean. I just had no energy to do anything else. I felt like I was in depression. It was just how I was feeling. but I knew I could not quit. Yet, I could not seem to make it happen. Life just wasn't happening for me. I was like Glenda said, I felt stuck. And those were my exact words when I called her and I said, I need help. I'm stuck. So for me, and I know some of you, based on what you just said, do you ever feel like you wish there was that magical button you can push and you can just restart it all? That was me. I kept looking for that magical button. It was at that time, though, that I started to meditate. I started listening to speakers such as Wayne Dyer, Alan Watts, Les Brown, anyone that would kind of light a candle for me to just shed some light in the darkness I was in. Anyone that would give me hope, I listened to. They were instrumental in coaching and changing lives, so I made a decision to find my own. So I allowed my spirit to guide me at that point because I kept looking and I kept reading, and then I came across Glenda's page. And I looked at her for a while, because you try to feel it out. You try to feel it out, right? And I said, I think it's her. And I said to my daughter, I said, I think I'm going to call her. And I called her, and she was on her way. You were traveling. She was getting ready to travel.
Senegal.
Yes,
Africa.
she was getting ready to travel. And she said, well, I'm leaving, but I'll be back. And I was like, that's okay, I'll wait. So I waited for her to return. And at that point, I knew I was really in pursuit of looking for a resolution in my life, but also for that transformational change. Okay, I'm gonna start with Glenda. Starting my sessions with Glenda, I then had to reset. I had to refocus. This meant me going inward and doing a lot of self-examination. So she was really instrumental in guiding me there. I had to be transparent with myself. I had to confront that I had lost my voice in speaking up. I lost my voice in saying no. I had to confront that I cheated myself of happiness and fulfillment just based on my decisions and actions. In my session, I realized the mess I was in, I actually create. There was no magical button for me to push. I had to address my traumas and the parts of me that were not healed. This was the process of me just purging the vision of myself that did not serve me. There were times throughout our sessions that Glenda would present questions. I was so used to giving surface answers. I'm quite sure some of you can relate. The answers that just sounds good. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm great. Deep down, we know we're not. And I was so used to giving those answers. But Glenda would not accept it. She would say to me, go deeper. And there were times that became really challenging that I just did not want to go deeper. And still, she would go, in the most gentlest way, she would reword that question and say, go deeper and deeper. And she says, I know you got this. You know this. Go deeper. It became fun after a while, and we began to call it excavating. And we were basically digging up the dirt, getting it to the core of the problem. I'll share a great example with you. I had a difficult time forgiving my mom. I was angry that she had made a choice not to be a part of my life. We explored my emotions, my disappointments, and discovered that sometimes one may seek validation, and love from those who may not have even had it to give. So even though the pain may have remained, it was a disservice for me to hold on to that pain. So working with Glenda, I learned how to work that out. And that's what part of my experience with her was working that out, learning to forgive and just continue to move on. My pages start. So as the world began to reset from COVID, so was I. I was wrapping up my sessions with Glenda and thinking about my career. I got licensed in real estate because I thought it was something I would love. I did it, and I still do it. But at around the same time, my daughter's grandmother had passed. And in handling her affairs, we realized that we did not understand the financial part of it. So that sparked our curiosity. And three of us, myself, her, and one of her other sisters, we became educated and licensed, which turned into a passion, not only for educating ourselves, but we're educating others and others in our community. Presently, we're all financial planners at New York Life. We work as a team together. We work with individuals, families, and I've also made ourselves, right now we're branching out to business owners and also helping them secure their finances. So I'm going to talk about my journey. On this journey, I came to the realization that there was a divine design for my life. It was about me embracing the good and the unpleasant parts of me, not developing a narrative that there was something wrong with me and everyone else. I had to stop and reflect on how I had gotten into such a dark space. I realized that the divorce wasn't just about the traumas, the crazy emotions, and the emptiness that I was feeling. I had to learn to live life with a purpose. And I had to find balance when living my life. What I have learned from that experience is when there are issues or traumas we don't address, it will eventually show up in our behaviors and in different areas of our lives. I cannot tell you that now I'm living a complete life because healing takes time. But I took the first step, which was life coaching for me. I learned that even when things do not work out, to be okay with it. I had to learn how to trust myself and how to keep moving forward. And today, I'm here sharing my story with you. And I didn't see this coming. Imagine my surprise when I got that call. So I want to share with you some of the principles I've held on to, like we've also talked about here. My past no longer serves me. I give myself the opportunity to create space and to shed the old version of me. Forgiveness, I forgive me for being more committed to my struggles than my true self. I choose self-care. I choose to show up for me, to embrace the good, the bad, and never deplete me. Peace I give to myself. I choose what and who I allow to have access to me. I get to choose my peace. My happiness, I hold the key. It's not determined by anyone or an external factor. And I do not find a happy life. I create one. Love is one of my favorites. The key to love, what I've learned, is to love self. And I heard something recently and it just stood out to me. It just really touched every cell in my body at that point. It says, once you learn to love yourself, people will no longer look good to us unless they are good for us. And that was powerful for me, and I held on to that. So Radical Pursuit was a call that challenged me to find a willingness to be still, do the internal work for a transformational change, because what was missing was me. And for those who know me, one of my favorite things to say in any given situation is to handle it with love. And that includes me, and that includes you. In any situation, handle it with love. And as I wrap this up, I'll share with you, I meditate every day. I still journal. I give myself grace, and I understand that life is only as beautiful as I make it. So I say to you, stay present, even when it seems difficult. Live in your truth and decorate your life with love, care, and respect. And if you can do that, that magical button I was looking for, it would automatically turn on. And lastly, celebrate you. And that is something I learned from Glenda, to celebrate the small win. Thank you for listening. And thank you for your time.
You know, in certain segments of the Black community, we like to overuse the term grown ass. Let me use that term here with some gravitas and credibility. Marcia is a grown ass woman. This is what it looks and sounds like when you come out on the other side, having done the audacious inner work. Marcia, your transformation and glow up are beautiful. Brava, brava, brava. So I'll give you a chance to ask Marcia some questions in a minute or share some comments. But so Marcia, I'm obviously familiar with your transformation journey, but I'm less familiar with this newer phase of your life. And I'm curious about what the experience has been like for you, having to wade through your past and take stock of key moments in order to craft your story and to share it publicly for the first time. Because you went in.
Oh, wow. It wasn't easy, guys. Like I said, I'm still working on me. I'm still changing. But being in, just having guidance, life coaching actually changed my life. Because when I first contacted Glenda, when she would say, well, what are you feeling and how are you feeling? And I couldn't express it. All I kept saying was, I just feel stuck. And those were the words I used. I felt stuck. I no longer knew who I was. I did not know what made me happy. I was raised in a home where you kind of just serve. You don't ask questions. You don't express yourself. So I kept, you say you're 47? I'm 58, okay? So, it took me longer to get there, but I made the first steps to get there. So it wasn't easy, but I feel, like you said, you don't give up. You know you're in a move. And there's something inside of you. It's almost like your spirit would not let you rest. Because I know my spirit wouldn't let me rest because I couldn't sleep. And I kept going and going, not knowing where I was going, but I knew I had to keep going. So to get to this point, I have to say, when I look back at where I was and where I am, and I look at the things I've accomplished so far, it feels good. It feels free. You know, you finally feel like you're doing something for yourself. You finally feel like you're living life. You know, and I have a voice. It's where I discovered my voice. It's where now I can say no. No to you and yes to me. And that's something I had the most difficult time in our sessions saying, like, I couldn't say no to this person. I couldn't say I couldn't do it. But now I have a voice. I have boundaries, where I've learned to say no. So I'm very happy with where I am and the work I've done. And I couldn't have done it without her. I couldn't. But like I said, I did let spirit move.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Radical pursuit. Let's open up. Comments, questions for Marcia. Where's the mic? Okay, yes, behind you, behind you. Mm-hmm. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Rakia.
Hi, Rakia.
Wonderful story. Really enjoyed it. There was a moment that was critical to me, and you were talking about the reflection period where you started to, it sounds like, take accountability, right, for your involvement in some of the results you're in. And I'm curious, as someone who is trying to increase my self-awareness, as someone who's trying to increase accountability, without blaming, because then it leads to guilt and it leads to shame, and then it'll just go back into the cycle. If you could talk about what that part of that journey looked like for you, how were you critical without being mean to yourself, right? And still giving love and still pouring into that part of you that needed that forgiveness as well.
Okay. At that point, I experienced all of those things you said, the shame. Like, I was afraid to admit that I had a role in it. And I think that's the most difficult part, is that to get to the part where you say, I had a role in what was happening in my life. And that takes time. But I did get to that point. And you spoke about where you come, the part where you start to forgive yourself. It's not easy forgiving yourself, but it's something I kept repeating. Like, I had affirmations. I did have help writing affirmations. And I would use affirmations as part of that to help me along the way. But the other part of that is I had to actually hold myself accountable. And it's just something we have to do, to recognize that there's a role we all play. And another part of that is I always, and even now I say it, it's never about the other person. It's always about me. Because they're going to do what they need to do. How I react, it's about me. It becomes about me. How am I going to respond to what they are doing or what they're saying? And it's like a mental note in my mind that I use all the time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if I feel they're wrong. It doesn't matter. It's not about them. It's about me. I hope I answered you.
Back to Martine on the other side.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Your story was very inspiring. I was just like taking so many notes and making mental notes of what I'm going to do when I get home. And so you inspired me instantaneously. So thank you so much for that. And I have a question. So you mentioned that you got into real estate and you thought that you would love it. I'm currently, constantly just changing and getting into a new pursuit and realizing like, oh no, this is not for me. So how do you kind of navigate that? It sounds like you're getting into your own business and that could be like, some sort of like journey for you. But I was wondering like, how do you navigate the space that you're in? Because my concern of staying into something that you realize is not your passion, it could become draining. So I'm wondering, how are you navigating real estate being that it's not your passion?
Because now I do it on the side. When I started off with real estate, I thought I would really love it. And I enjoy designing. I enjoy meeting people. I just enjoy what's that show? They show the homes and everything, and it looks so great and like it's fun. No, it's work. And you're not getting paid to put in half of that work you're putting in. So I was doing that for a while, but when you realize that something is not for you, like you said, you kind of feel it. But I wouldn't say not to go for it. You go for things if you realize it's not for you, then you say, okay, it didn't work out, but at least you went for it. With me with financial planning now, I think I only got there. Oh, wait, and let me just back it up. I started off with making oils. That's like I was just telling you, try different things. Eventually, you will find your passion. I was making oils, and then I was trying soaps, and then I was doing it all. Landing in the financial aspect of it was I guess like accident almost. And then I realized I loved it, and I wanted to know more about it. So I would say keep going. Don't stop. You're going to just try and say, okay, well, this is not for me. And I used to use my age, right? As a way, it's like, oh, maybe I can't, or maybe I need this perfect 9-to-5 job. But no, life is about living. Live it, love it, and keep going.
I would say, Martine, check your intentions and what's informing the decisions you're making. Are you being influenced by other people's ideas of what they think you should be doing? So what is underneath you're moving in different directions? Are you sitting still long enough to inquire of spirit and allowing that energy to guide you? So what's underneath you're moving in these different places? So again, it's about trying out different things, but how do you get into those different things, and what is your rationale for getting into those different things, right? So what is it true for you, right? So get to the core of that, I would offer. I want to say one final thing, and then we'll go on to the next speaker. I wonder if anybody has intuited the idea of divine providence for Marcia. Here's what I mean. She was financially insecure and dependent on her husband, right? Had a hard time when he closed that bank account. And today she's a financial planner. Do you think that's an accident? I just wanted to put that out there. So sometimes when we're thinking that it's the struggle and life is hard, it is the calling on your life. And the only way you get there is by moving through those experiences. I'm just getting goosebumps right now.
Wake me up.
Thank you, Marcia. Our next speaker, I met our next guest speaker, Analeah Henderickson, 3 years ago as part of a New York City startup intensive for Black women entrepreneurs. Analeah was a standout member in our group, and she advanced our conversations with her resources and insights, and always grounded our conversations in business concepts. When the program ended, some of us continued to network and meet regularly. Over time, our numbers have waned, but Analeah and I continue to network. And it is a privilege to meet with her biweekly, to troubleshoot, to brainstorm, and to engage in strategic planning for our brands. So what is Greater Edge, Inc.? What influenced it? And what new exciting things are happening with her brand? Let's find out. I present to you my business thought partner, Analeah Henderickson.
It was my first day, and I was terrified. I took a job, New York City public high school teacher, for the first time. And so I'm standing in the classroom, and we have 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds that look way older than me. So I said to myself, okay, I was supposed to go into healthcare, but I took this opportunity to teach. So what am I going to do? So I said, you know what, I have to be here for a reason. This has to be happening for a reason. And so over the weeks in dealing with the students, we touched upon a topic that I was shocked that they were overwhelmingly interested in: nutrition. Nutrition. We know the basic breakfast of a New York City public high school student: bacon, egg, and cheese, some chips, and some soda. But the interesting thing was they were excited to look at nutrition labels and compare notes, and they'd come back to me with feedback. I tried this new vegetable, I tried this new fruit. And it really kind of ignited a passion in me for not only learning about nutrition, but also teaching it. So, worked with the students, enjoyed that. But then I transitioned into bedside nursing. Started off at a nursing home. And for that population, these were primarily elderly residents. Some had long-term chronic illnesses, they lived there. Some were receiving end-of-life care. Some were recuperating from really extensive surgical procedures, and others were there simply for example, a knee replacement. They'd have to go for intensive physical therapy, and they were there for rehab. Every couple of weeks, doctor would show up and prescribe meal replacement beverages for them: Ensure, Boost, those type of beverages. And as I'm circulating around the unit, people aren't drinking them. They don't like the taste. For some residents, they didn't like the texture. For my residents that had difficulty swallowing, they couldn't swallow it. And some complained about an odor. So these Boosts, Ensures, they start to stack up at the bedside. What do we have to do? We have to throw them away. Waste. And they're not getting that vital nutrition that they need to transition out of the nursing home and just have a better clinical course. So from the nursing home, I then transitioned into acute care. A hospital near here is a gastrointestinal surgical unit in critical care. A lot of the patients there had inflammatory bowel disorders: Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, those extensive types of bowel disease, cancers. So they were receiving multiple extensive surgeries, and the demographic was different. We're talking 20, 30 years old. So when there's a flare-up, they're missing school, they're missing work, they're missing time with family, they're in the hospital. When things are good, they're home, they're living their lives. But still, nutritionist, dietitian would come in, prescribe these meal replacement beverages: Ensure, Boost. Once again, I'm saying this is a different place, different demographic, same issues. They're still sitting there at the bedside. And with nursing, we're not allowed to say somebody cracks open the bottle, oh, just stick it in the fridge. We're not allowed to do that because of infection concerns. And so even them stacking up, same thing at the bedside, we had to just throw them away. So I noticed that same complaints: chemical odor, chalky aftertaste. Many of them have ulcerations in the mouth and of the throat, can't swallow them very well. But I did realize the ones who did drink them, they had such a better clinical outcome. And so it gave me an idea. And I said, what if I could make a meal replacement beverage for people who have these type of food intolerances or these gastrointestinal issues that doesn't have a chalky aftertaste, that doesn't have a chemical odor, that is hypoallergenic, that has a good flavor. And so that's what I did. I started creating recipes for people of that population. And so the way things are going now, I've been able to get into a Cornell Venture Center on scholarship to get my recipes formulated so that I can produce them and really send them out to the people who need it. Thank you. This month, I shared with Glenda already, I was in an association with Commonwealth Kitchen, which is located in Massachusetts. in Santander Bank. I was able this month to get a grant of $10,000 to go towards that. And now I'm in a manufacturing program that's going to help me to transition from small batch manufacturing to larger batches. The end goal is to sell to hospital systems, veterans, surgical centers, and go that route. So the thing that's interesting to me is now I get it. I said in 2005, why am I here? What purpose does this serve? Now I get it. Everything has, some people's finding of their purpose is linear. Mine has come full circle. And for that, I'm grateful.
Yeah. So wherever you are at the moment, there's an opportunity to learn, right? Because you don't know when and how that's going to serve you going forward. Yeah. And so being in high school with those high schoolers, how amazing that, first of all, that they were interested in nutrition. But who would have thought years later that you would be in this clinical setting, see similar problems, and that became the through line for you to think about innovating and creating a meal supplement replacement. Talk about radical pursuit. And what's so inspiring to me, Analeah, is that we know that securing capital investment is often a roadblock for women entrepreneurs, particularly Black women entrepreneurs. But because you were in radical pursuit and you engage in a lot of these conferences and workshops and these courses, you made the right kinds of connections. And people saw you and what you were offering. And so you became a candidate for this grant. And so I am so excited for you what you're going to do in this market, because this is a real concern, right? That you're trying to bring something that's going to be nutritious but also tastes good for people who have real needs. So I am so excited to know somebody who actually saw a problem, a real problem, and is trying to create a solution. So this is so amazing. All right. Your thoughts, questions for Analeah? Where's the mic? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but the audio, the live streaming, it helps. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So my question is, so what are the recipes that you created now that you're going on to, you said Harvard?
Well, it's with Cornell, the Venture
Cornell,
Center.
right.
So we're tweaking things because there's certain things we can't put in the seeds. It has to be hypoallergenic. So it's mainly plant-based. I'm using milks like coconut milk, oat milk, I'm staying away from all types of lactose. The protein that I'm using is plant-based. I can't use any whey. It's a lot of people get allergies from that. And also I'm using pea protein and pea milk. Not the green peas, it's like yellow. Because people are like, oh, green milk. So it's the yellowish color, and it doesn't cause the upset stomach, the gas, the bloating that, oh, and I should also say that, during those periods of times when people have flare-ups, they can't have solid food. Weeks at a time sometimes. So this is a solution for that. It's plant-based and enjoyable.
Right. And just one more thing. So, and will that be available to the general public, or is it just
I
gonna
want to
be-
just specifically focus on hospital procurement and contracting.
Okay.
I think that it will help me to really get it to the people that need it.
Okay. That's
You
a
know.
blessing. God
Thank
bless
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is your name Analeah?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm interested in more so the confidence aspect of your journey. I think everything that you've accomplished thus far is just like phenomenal. And just for you to have the audacity, right, to be able to step up to, or just to innovate, seeing something that's missing, and it's also just sparking some ideas for myself. I find myself wrapped up in the idea of a Black woman, how we should lower our voices and not be too loud and not be too audacious. And so, how did you find the confidence to be able to innovate and go to major corporations or, and just be able to take up space. Like, how did you get there?
I call it jumping out the window. I don't know if that's the best term to use, but I think what's helped with that is connections, networking. 100%. Signing up for accelerator programs. And then in those accelerator programs, I personally reach out to who's teaching or who's sponsoring the program. And I'll give you an example. I took an accelerator, and in the class was somebody who actually formulated a beverage similar to mine. So instead of, oh, this competition, I reached out to him. He's based in Canada, and we had a conference call, and I got so much value from that one call. It was amazing. So, I just hit send. Or I'll just reach out to somebody and say, "Can you please make this soft introduction for me?" Done that several times, and that's basically it. I'm naturally a little bit timid sometimes, but yeah, that's I'll have somebody else make the introduction if I'm too overwhelmed.
Anybody else? Any thoughts or comments or questions for Analeah? All right, thank you, Analeah. Oh yes, Corinne?
That your journey is beautiful. Just being able to have been working with the students and then transitioning to the nursing home, but seeing that thread. I think a lot of people go through different jobs or careers, and they don't really realize how much of those skills are transferable or what the lesson was to be able to get you to understand the full picture of what you're doing now. So I just want to say that's beautiful.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, Analeah, Marcia. And now we're coming up on the final two. Audacious women. I met Rayda several years ago through my husband, Doherty, as they were colleagues at the YMCA at the time. And I know there's some Y people here. Shout out the YMCA. We're here for good. Um, and my husband is a huge fan of Rayda's. And he thought that she and I shared lots of commonalities and that we should meet to explore a partnership and brainstorm next steps in our career trajectory, because at that point we were at a crossroads. Well, fast forward years later, and I founded Audacious Inner Works for personal development and capacity building. And Rayda has taken that leap of faith and founded Cultural Connections Global for culturally immersive travel and civic youth engagement. Along the way, she has partnered with her visionary soulmate, Erin Friedman, as co-executive director, and together they have inherited this amazing facility. How? Here is how, let me share how they characterize each other and their work. Drawn together by their shared passion for exploration, education, and service to others, Rayda and Erin's professional careers and personal friendship led them to this moment. They are honored to continue the legacy of the Association for World Travel Exchange, Inc., a nonprofit that turned 70 this year. As co-executive directors, Rayda and Erin bring a wealth of nonprofit experience and a global network of friends and champions. They believe in the transformational power of bringing people together from across cultures to build peace and understanding. It is my pleasure to present our hosts and my dear friends, Rayda Marquez and Erin Friedman.
Thank you. So, yeah, so our present, we're co-executive directors, we're friends, we're former colleagues, and we want to tell you that story together. But a little bit of background, Erin and I met at the Y. She's a former colleague. So we weren't working in New York. We met through our work. So we were both working for the YMCA, but in the global space. So my work through in the Y was in international work, so developing exchange programs and curating all kinds of programs for people to come to this country and to send young people abroad as well. And also supporting the work of YMCAs in other countries. And that's where I met Erin in that work. And we became instant friends. And actually, we don't really have a recollection of exactly when that moment was, because when we met, we hit it off. And honestly, I feel like I've known her for such a long time. And now we're beyond friends. Now we're sisters, we're soulmates. And we, as Glenda said, we've inherited this space, and we'll tell you how that happened. But did you want to say?
Yeah, well, that was a good intro.
Well,
Um,
just how we've met. Right?
and well, yeah, how we met, and
in 2019, right? In 2019,
when you called me.
yes,
Yeah.
in 2019,
Okay.
actually, I
Sorry.
took the bold decision to go off out on my own. I had worked for the Y for a long time. I had worked for the Y for almost 20 years. And that was my passion. I loved the global space. I loved being able to bring people together from across cultures. And I, as a bicultural New Yorker living in a very diverse city, I know the benefit of travel, of leaving your neighborhood, of going to another place. And so that was the space that I had the privilege of working in and loved it. And in 2019, I decided that I would start. I had moved on from the Y, and then I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I still wanted to continue to do this work. And I didn't really see a job that I wanted, and I didn't really want a job. I wanted to pursue my passion. And so I thought, well, I think I could probably do this on my own, and I have enough people around the world that I know, and a lot of people just from the various networks. And I will say that throughout the years, building relationships and maintaining those relationships is very important, because at that moment in time, I thought, well, I can go back. I have a network. I have a global network. I have a local network. And that's how I started. And I started reaching out, people saying, yes, we'd love to work together, and starting to curate trips to this country. This was in 2019. So if you work in travel, you know that you're usually planning a year in advance. So in 2019, I had traveled to Europe and to Latin America, and had started developing those relationships again and building trips for 2020. And then, excited about everything. And then in 2020, the world came to a screeching halt. And I didn't have a plan B because everything was travel, travel, travel. But like everybody else, was trying to figure things out. How the people that I had been working with, we were thinking about, okay, so how do we move to the virtual space? What does that mean when we're working at curating trips to other countries? But the one thing we did was we continued speaking and trying to figure it out. And at that time, I have to say that we were open. I was open to thinking out of the box, right? Because we had to think out of the box. And around that time, I would say it was March, pretty early on, right? Erin gave me a call, and
So March 2020, Rayda had, she was off and running, and I look back at, a reflection I wrote back in 2019 when Rayda had come to visit me, and it was basically about moving mountains with your passion in this fierce energy inside of you, and that was Rayda, right? She had told me back in 2019 that I'm taking this departure from everything I've known in a way, but I'm really building on my experience. So I'm never starting, we have this notion, you're never really starting from scratch. Mm-hmm. So she had told me that back in 2019, and I was so proud of her, wrote about it, reflected on it. Well, fast forward in a year and a half and of sitting on the sidelines of encouraging her, and the pandemic hit, and I was in the job that I loved, right? And thought that I would retire from, even though I was only in my mid 40s. Could have stayed at that job for a lifetime just because, if you're one of those people who's like every year you're thinking and reinventing and recreating and reimagining, it doesn't really get old. However, little did I know how much more life was outside of those walls. So when the pandemic hit, I was furloughed. I don't know if anyone else in the room was furloughed, but I didn't know what that meant other than they're like, well, we're going to discontinue your email. You can't work. And I was like, I can't sit still. So what can I do? How can I be of service to somebody, to something? And it can't be related to my work that I love. So you call your dear friends, right? So Rayda's in this place where she's trying to figure things out, and with really no idea, no vision of where we would be today. I just called her and said, I don't even remember the phone call. I mean, there's a lot of foggy moments. I don't know why, but I would love to know what that first conversation was, but it was probably something like, gosh, I have all these curated trips lined up for this year, for this summer. They're not happening. I'm not sure what we're going to do. Well, I have time. Let's just start talking. Let's just start thinking together. So we did. And somehow very quickly, like within the matter of months, we were working together. Mm-hmm. We were working together. And Rayda had taken me under the wing of this endeavor she started, Cultural Connections, the LLC. And she took me under her wing. And we became thought partners. We became visionary partners. We began thinking outside of the box. What can we do? What kind of work could we do in this virtual space? And it happened pretty quickly. So much so that when I got the official call to say, well, your job's eliminated along with the rest of your team, I was like, okay, I'm ready to move. There wasn't really a true mourning process because I sort of saw the writing on the wall, and that was okay. It was okay to let go of the past and know that that was wonderful and great, but I wasn't going to sit in mourning over it. And so when Rayda and I came together, that summer, we started working in the virtual space, developed a partnership with the World Federation of United Nations Associations, which led us to an opportunity to start cultivating global cohorts of young people from around the world, leaning on networks and friends, and just gave us something to wrap our arms around. It didn't mean that we had it all figured out. It meant that we put a lot of personal sacrifice into it. So we were essentially somehow sponsoring, 50 young people at a time from around the world to participate in these global forums that we felt like they deserved a seat at that table. We knew that there is a gap there. We looked at where these amazing programs are happening, and they weren't happening for a lot of young people who we felt it important. And so it became an early part of our mission to make global education possible and more accessible for other people.
And the virtual space actually allowed for a broader participation, is what we found.
Sure.
So
that was sort of the early formation of our work. And so the virtual is great. We had an opportunity to work with Glenda and realized, some additional coaching that the young people we were working with needed to prepare them for that space. We had to prepare them to be in that space comfortably and confidently. And Glenda was instrumental in helping us design an experience and curriculum to prepare them for that. But like everyone in that space, there was a lot of trial and error and testing and figuring out what works. And then fast forward, into 2021, the summer of 2021, Rayda had a longtime friend.
Right. So this organization, Glenda mentioned, is 70 years old. It was founded in 1953 as a nonprofit in this neighborhood. And from the beginning, a part of the nonprofit was the hostel. So we're actually in a building that is a youth hostel. And so maybe if you've heard some footsteps, we've got guests. But and the mission, the purpose of bringing people together in 1953. So after World War II, there were a lot of organizations that were formed to foster peace and understanding, right? Because everyone was thinking, how do we avoid another war? And so that was the purpose of this, that was what the mission of this organization as well. And so it had operated for many years. We, as a YMCA professional, I was aware of this work of this nonprofit because we worked in similar spaces and had become friends with the executive director, who was not the founder but had succeeded the founder. So he was the executive director for about 30 years. And I had talked to Erin about him and said, you know, there's a space. It would be great if we could partner. Let's reach out and talk to him and say, you know, they can't have guests, but maybe we can partner in some way and they can focus on the facility, but we can somehow think about developing programs so when things open up again, we have a place to be. And you know, didn't hear. We submitted, you know, we'd write proposals, heard nothing. And then suddenly we got a call saying, you know what, no, what's going to happen is we're actually going to close. We're going to close the building. I've decided that I'm going to just move on. And, you know, it's been enough. 30 years is a long time. And now we have to close. So when a nonprofit closes, what happens is it has to sell the building because it doesn't really belong to anyone. It belongs to the nonprofit. And then that money has to get donated because there's no personal gain. And we were thinking, we're thinking, what? No, you cannot sell. Please let us, you know, submit something. Let us talk to the board. And so we went from thinking about, oh, maybe we can partner to, wait, is it possible? Can we actually take this on? And so, I mean, it wasn't a very hard decision actually. And so what we did was we said, well, can we see the space? Can we go in? He said, yes, fine. We came in one day. It was sometime in August or something, August of 2021. We came. I don't know if it's going to be possible because we have a before and after that we put together. I'm not sure if it'll be possible to, no, oh, sorry, to show. We have a link, but it might not be uploading. But we came in and we were in love. We were just like, oh my God, this is it. This is where our mission will be housed. And so we immediately, well, we had written many emails and proposals, and finally we got a meeting with the board and, you know, told them who we were. And, you know, I think we started off with, we believe in this work. We know what this means. And it's so important, just as important now as it was then, this work of bringing young people together from across cultures. And we would like to continue that legacy and build on it. Because, you know, when would we have the opportunity to start a nonprofit in this area again? It just, you know, it wouldn't happen. And I remember the president of the board asking us, well, how would this enhance your, you know, how would having a building enhance your work? And we just thought, oh my God, well, it would be a game changer for us, actually. Never in our minds did we think, you know, do we know anything about facilities management? No. I mean, I'm a New Yorker. I was born and raised here, lived in an apartment my entire life. So I don't even know about, you know, boilers and things like that. I don't know. Well, now I know, but I didn't then. And so just all kinds of things that at that time we weren't even thinking about. And I remember him asking, well, do you have any doubts? And we're like, no, we don't have any doubts. You know, we're actually very excited. We had, it's, I don't know if it's, an innocence or what, but we were just so excited. The place was beautiful. The energy here from the beginning was just so, you can just tell that there was a history, an important history and a beautiful energy. A lot of good work had happened here, and we just wanted to be a part of it and to continue to build on it. And so, you know, at the end of that meeting, we always go into meetings saying, okay, what do we want to get out of the meeting? And in this case, we thought, we want another meeting, right? We want to have another conversation to convince these people. And after 45 minutes, the president said, okay, well, I think we could probably, you know, sign an MOU and have you move forward. And we were, I mean, we were on Zoom because this was a Zoom call, and we were just like, oh my God.
Texting each other. Okay.
Like, how can we, you know, anyway.
Yeah.
So,
So within a month, we had the keys to the building, and we walked in, and Rayda's right. This place had a feel to it. It just had a warmth, the history we knew about, and you know, we were probably pretty rosy-eyed about, you know, just how we're in this space. We've done a lot to the building. I mean, the first night we spent here, we were kind of like in the bunk beds upstairs, like, oh my gosh, I don't know whether to cry. I mean, the place did not quite look like this. It was probably 25 different colors. We probably on the very first night took about 40 bags of grimy stuff out, and there's just been countless loads of other stuff that have gone out since. But for us, again, the building is it. We wanted it to reflect the beauty that was happening in the space and the people that were coming here, and for people to feel pride in it. So I say that we did some of those projects not because it's the most important thing, but it was important for us to make the place feel clean. I mean, you're in the business of hospitality; it has to feel clean. We wanted to preserve some of the character, and we wanted it to have a certain feel. So we put some energy into that. We learned a whole lot along the way. You know, it wasn't like it was this easy ride, right? I mean, the organization we were inheriting, if you will, had no money to pay us, right? And we agreed to that. We said, we'll start paying ourselves once we generate, which meant that was in September of 2021. We finally paid ourselves for the first time in January of this year. And that's not because either of us had this, you know, that meant dipping into our retirement, leaning on our family, not like strangers, like, but leaning on our family to say, you know, can you help, you know, support us in some ways through this? So I mean, I just want to be real about that, because sometimes it's easy to look and just say, oh, wow, no, it wasn't that easy, because there wasn't even money to do the things we were doing. We were buying paint. We were doing that wasn't not just paying ourselves. That was also putting the money into doing those things too.
And doing everything ourselves because we couldn't afford. We had, you know, the organization did have some money from actually the, you know, EIDL, if anybody knows, from the pandemic. The government had given them some money. And so they did have that. It was a small fund, and we thought, we'll take that money. That was something we had agreed on. There's some structural issues that needed to be addressed first. And so before taking this on, first we had a friend come who's an inspector and just go through the building. And he agreed, but he said, yes, it's an old building, it's over 100 years old, but it's in good condition. You know, it's got good bones. And so, but we knew that there were some real structural work that needed to happen before we could even open the building. And then things had to just be functional as well, because it had been closed for 2 years. And so, and then everything else, like the painting and everything, that was, you know, volunteer weekends with family and friends. And so a lot of this was, and this is 2020. I'll backtrack. 2020, we were doing virtual programs that Erin had mentioned. and she had said we were sponsoring kids, that was also coming from, we weren't generating at that time. But one thing we knew was, we knew that we actually had to do programs. We were creating, and we had to create, because then what did we have to show? We were just building something. We had to show something. And in the end, it paid off, right? Because it allowed us to get here. Well, by the time we had our conversation with the board, we were able to say, yes, we have these programs that we've been doing. So, but if someone had said to us back in 2020, you're not going to get paid until 2023, I don't think, I don't know how enthusiastic we would have been. But
But it all worked.
It worked.
Until there were some lessons certainly along the way, right? And obstacles, and we learned that we're not going to dwell there. We're going to remain optimistic in the face of uncertainty.
And then fast forward, in August of last year, we opened. That was the other thing. When we first took this over, we thought, who's going to want to stay in a hostel, right? Nobody's staying in places with strangers. But in August, things were moving again, and we were able to open, and we've been full. We were full through December, right, which was a surprise. And then, and one of the things that we did early on was, this operated as a hostel and was receiving guests for all of these years from other countries and from around the country. But it didn't really have local ties. And one of the things that we wanted to ensure was that we wanted to be part of this community, and we wanted to deepen our ties with the community. So one of the first things we did was, once the place was spruced up, we opened up the doors and invited our neighbors in to say, this is who we are. This is our vision for the place, and we'd like you to be part of it, and you're welcome. And so we're actually we have a very dynamic neighborhood here. And for us, it was also important to ensure that this place was here for everybody. So not only the people in the neighborhood. So the idea of having an accessible and affordable place in a place like, the Upper West Side was very important to us, and is important to us. So
Let's put our hands together for Erin and Rayda. Analeah jumped out of the window, and you were rosy-eyed. And I want to say you were in the right place at the right time, and rosy-eyed was exactly what you needed. Because perhaps if you had the knowledge of building and maintenance, you might have said, we are not going to do this. So that naivete, not knowing about what goes in structurally to maintaining a building, worked out for you. So obviously it was labor intensive, but here you are on the other side of that. And you have a facility that houses your vision, and you can offer your network to come and host events. How amazing. So we've got to jump out of that window sometimes. Being rosy-eyed can be helpful, because when you came in with rosy eyes, you're seeing your vision, right? What could be. You're connecting to the history of this place, and those were your lenses. How wonderful. Are we grateful that they had that mindset? So thank you. Let's open up to you now for comments or questions to Erin and Rayda. Where's the mic? Martine, and then we'll go to the other side.
So thank you both for sharing your journey. I think it's very brave of you both to continue on that journey with all of the challenges that nonprofit can present. As a social worker, I know. And so I have a question. So despite all of the challenges, or I would say somewhat asking for help, I think sometimes it could be uncomfortable with relying on family members or anything of that sort. What drove you, besides like your passion that is very clear and obvious? Were there any other things that drove you to continue the journey despite the challenges?
I think, I mean, I'll speak for myself at least. I mean, I think it's a deep commitment to really believing in this work. So we say, like, you really can't do this unless you love it, right? And there are some people who are just looking for, and there's nothing wrong with this, but really just want an 8 to 4, 8 to, because they need that for a variety of reasons, and that's what their life can allow for. And in this case, this was going to require so much more of us. It's 7 days a week. There's always something happening. It's very rare that we go a day without talking, And so I think that the driving force was this really deeply held belief that places and programs like this are needed. And that I know for me, I wanted to do this work, and I wanted to do it on my own terms. I wanted to be able to do it in a way that said we can really choose about who we're partnering with, and that was just important. I don't know.
It is important, and it's
Scary.
because he's a man. That's why, right? Yeah.
I was going to say that, but I was like, maybe not.
Yeah, no, it was it hasn't been hard in the sense that we really knew that this is what we want. So much so that we've said it, we did it not getting paid, and not knowing when that would happen. I'll be honest, it did get to the point by the end of this year, we thought, okay, something really now has to come through for us, because if not, we couldn't imagine giving this up, right? We had already invested so much. And so, and as it turns out, it worked out for us. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Can you speak to the idea of having a visionary soulmate? I think too often we just think about in terms of intimacy, but in terms of someone sharing your vision that you can I think that's phenomenal. But can you speak on that?
One of our friends and early coaches in this process had said to us, you have a strength you don't even realize because it happened so effortlessly for you. And we were meeting with him, and he was, what is that book that he always tells us about?
Oh my gosh, design.
Anyway, he's always throwing resources at us, and he's a real, if you're familiar with organizational development work, I mean, he's got an intervention for everything, and he's got a great resource, and we're like, okay, we're trying to follow along with the white chart paper, and we're just out here, and but the way we were interacting and working with each other and visioning together in that one of those early meetings, this was back in 2020, summer of 2020. He said, you just have this strength that you don't even realize, and that is that you just effortlessly have synergy with each other. And one of the things that Rayda and I realized about our past worlds was that ego never drove anything we did, right? We were involved with things, but neither of us cared if our DNA was all over it. It's that's not really what mattered to us. And I think in this process and in our work together, it was the same. It was just that's not what, and I say that only to say that as we came together and forged ideas and shared a vision, and co-created vision and co-led, all of that was just this seamless process. And it wasn't about being in competition with each other or to say that, oh, I like that idea better or that idea. No, it wasn't about that. And we also worked very uniquely. So the pandemic was for some people, a lonely time because you're at home and you're isolated. Our work days look very different, and they didn't make sense to our families. About 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, we would hop on Zoom, and we would talk all day long. We would literally talk, we draft, and we still do this. Oh, who do we have to correspond with today? We write our emails together. We da 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 da. I mean, it was like, I mean, I would think someone was like, "Oh, you're like Ben and Jerry." You know, it's just like, I mean, everything was done together. But when you're creating something from what felt to us more or less like the ground up, we were gonna expend more energy trying to catch each other up at the end of a day, at the end of a week, on what did you do, and what did you do, and what did this person say, and what did that person say. We were just in it, like fully in it together. And so that visioning process just happened organically, because we were always in that conversation together.
And even the decision to be co-executive directors, because when we met with the board, they said, okay, then, one can have one role, the other one. And we were very intentional about, no, we would like to be co-executive directors. And that's how we lead, we co-lead. And there's never an I in our conversations, or if I'm meeting with someone, or if Erin's meeting with someone, it's always we. And, it works for us. And I don't know, I think, but I do think that there is a benefit because, leading an organization or just leading can be lonely, right? We were talking about it. And in our case, we have each other as thought partners, and so we are our thought partners, and we're there. And there, there's some days also where, I'll get up and maybe I'm not as motivated, and then she is, and so that brings me up, and vice versa. So it just works. And I think it's a model that really should be explored more, because anyway.
Yes. I'm privy to lots of stories about executive directors who really could use support with their own personal development and competence, because whoever you are shows up in whatever you do, and so maybe this idea of having a co-executive director or someone simpatico with whom you could collaborate in some of these roles could prevent some of the power dynamics, and the really just bad behavior that we see. I mean, I'm just speaking it in leadership, absolutely. I think I saw, yes, tell us your name. Where's the mic? Yeah.
Sorry, I have social anxiety, and kind of get scared to talk in front of people. But my name is Levin. I came with my best friend Rakia from Maine because Erin, who has been my mentor since 2014, told me about this. I talked to her about having an identity switch at midnight, New Year's, and how I wanted to kind of put to rest the life that I was living before, and I didn't like it. I felt like, I think someone said being committed to my struggles, and I felt like I was doing that a lot. But June of last year, I got my license in social work, well, to become a clinician. And I love
Congratulations.
it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. It was like my ticket to freedom. That's what I would tell myself all the time. I was raised in Maine, so it wasn't a place that I wanted to stay for a long time after college. But I ended up going back, and then I felt like it was always for a reason. And I do know a lot of the reasons. I come from a single mother household, first generation Somali American. So there's a lot of factors into why I stayed as long as I did. Um, but at like the beginning of this year, I called Erin and I'm like, yeah, I need to like change my life. Like, I'm over it. I feel like I extended my stay here. I just need that push. And I feel like with this whole program as well, you guys are talking a lot of the things I needed to hear for that push. And when I talked to her, I made that. I booked that flight to New York. I literally just landed today and then had 30 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, we literally landed 30 minutes, got ready, came right here. That's why we were kind of late a little bit. Sorry. But I was ready. But there's a lot of things in my life that I feel like being hyper independent, being really, like supporting my family a lot. Like, how do I guess the question I have for you guys now is how do I navigate my responsibilities I have with my family, the cultural differences of just like being able to pack and leave when culturally that's not something I can really do. Um, and having faith in like not knowing if it could be successful because stability is really important in my life. So like how do you guys like do you have any advice for that? Or anything how I should navigate this?
Well, you just talked about your radical pursuit, right? Right? Just this step and how now you're doing clinical work and you've come here. I'm bicultural, so I understand the struggle, maybe the guilt even, but I think that you owe it to yourself and your family to really fulfill yourself. You know, be true, follow what you would like to do. It doesn't mean that you're separating from your family, but I think you have to focus on yourself, so that you're not severing from your family, but you're able to then contribute, right? Or grow, yeah. I think that's what they would want for you as well, right?
I was going to say that this is, did you want to share something, Erin? No. I was going to say that it's a loaded question. And it's, and I don't want us to minimize it because I think it requires more exploration. But here's what I would offer you. You start out by saying, I have social anxiety when I speak, and then you proceeded to speak very articulately. And so I would say that's part of the narrative, right? So that you could introduce yourself and just speak. There's nothing in terms of what you just presented here that felt like anxiety to me. So I just wanted to offer you that
It's
feedback
okay.
because
Sometimes I say that to calm my nerves. It's like reverse psychology. I don't know. I should
right.
probably stop saying that.
Because it's disempowering, and we live the narrative that we tell. Here is what I would also offer you in terms of your family, that like Paola, a lot of us are trailblazers in our family. We're pushing boundaries and breaking conventions. And so what you're going to do is create a more expansive notion of family. And so when you take care of you and you live true to who you are, eventually your family will rise. It may feel uncomfortable now because you're stepping out. You're doing something against the grain. And usually that's the thing that we need in our family to break cycles, to expand our imagination of what's possible and to have real, honest conversations. So when you do well, you become that mirror for your family about what is possible. So take that hope and this notion that I'm going to lead the charge. I'm going to honor who I am culturally, but also show my family that there is another way and they can coexist and be okay. So that's what I would just offer you off the top of my head, this expansive notion. That's going to be part of your radical pursuit, I think. All right. So let's put our hands together for all of our panelists. Marcia Prioleau, Analeah Henderickson, Erin Friedman, Rayda Marquez. We've heard very different journeys of radical pursuit, but there were themes throughout, and I just want to popcorn out a few just in the interest of time. And you might have, as I'm sharing these, I'd like you to also think about whether you heard some of these themes, that they are aligning with you. This idea of tribe and support. Do people hear that? You don't walk this journey alone. You need to have your tribe, your girls, your crew, your posse, your thought partners, right? Synergy. There's got to be synergy. We started laughing when you were talking with like husband and wife, right? Or wife and wife. It's like, okay, yes, they are definitely married. Synergy, leading with that synergy, forward movement. Even when you can't see the road, right? Rosy-eyed. Oh, we have a building. Going forward, going through those obstacles, doing the hard work, but doing work that feels true to your passions, right? What matters to you. And then there's experimentation. You don't get it right from the beginning, right? It's through the experimenting and the prototyping that you figure out what works and what your story is and how you want to tell it for who you are at that moment. And then just jump out the damn window. Take that leap of faith. You know, that's the only way that who you are meant to be and what's for you will be for you. You got to take that step. If you stay where you are, nothing changes. Yeah? So take that step. Thank you all for being here this evening. You've been so wonderful. Thank you for your engagement. Before we depart this evening, we'd like to request that you give us some feedback about this event. We have a QR code with a brief survey. We'd like to hear your thoughts about this event. We also have a QR code to join our mailing list if you're so inclined, or if you'd like to have a complimentary life coaching consultation, you're welcome to do that. So we've got our codes here, and I'd like to just give you a few minutes right now to give us some feedback or take care of some of these items. And then we're going to invite you to a reception where you can talk some more and connect. So please, there's one here, a flyer with the codes, another one here, one on the piano, and I think there's one somewhere in the back. So if you could please take a few minutes to give us some feedback, we'd appreciate that. Speakers, you can give that to... Oh, okay, sure.
First, I do want to congratulate Glenda. This is her life's passion. So she would do this just in her sleep. So I thank you for just being consistent.
Thank you.
I know Glenda only going on 3 decades, and she's always been this person. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I wanted to give you guys feedback because I had a few of my friends log in who couldn't make it today, and I just got a text saying to get all the panelists' information. She would like you guys to come to speak at her job to motivate her workers. So that's feedback right there. You guys are already booked for next event.
If they so choose. They'll explore it some more, but that's wonderful. Okay, yes. Thank you.
Hi there, audacious you, and happy Women's Herstory Month. To all the audacious women who persist, innovate, and change the course of history every single day, I salute you. This is the Audacious You series, and I'm Glenda M. Francis, professional life coach and the founder of Audacious Inner Works Institute. These episodes are all about connecting you to your greatness and power. And in this episode, we're talking about what inspires our daring as women. When I reflect on the lives of daring women, whether they're everyday women like my diva great aunt Dolorita, or historical figures like Sojourner Truth, what I am perhaps most inspired by is their relentless pursuit in service of their aspirations. And history is replete with such women across time and space. In fact, if you look closely, you can find this caliber of women in your own family history and local communities. We're everywhere. I'm fascinated by this drive forward. What fuels it? What do these women believe about themselves that makes such daring possible? But more importantly, what do you believe about yourself that spurs you forward into action? I'm willing to bet that at some point in your life, you've been in radical pursuit of a vision or goals that were important to you. I want you to recall that time or experience. What made that drive possible? If you sort through it, you'll probably discover there were some guiding beliefs and principles at play. Try to identify at least one belief and one principle that powered you. Chances are you've applied these very same principles at other times in your life to move you forward. Lean up on this new awareness to remind you of what you're capable of achieving, especially during tough times. Like you, I'm often in radical pursuit of some vision or big goals, such as growing my audacious brand. When I reflected on what this concept means to me and how I inhabit it, several key principles emerged. Here's one you may recognize from your own pursuits or may be useful for you. Taking responsibility for my vision. This includes incubating the vision, allowing the energy of it to surge through me and expand my imagination of what is possible. Developing an emotional bond to it. For example, talking about it, mapping it out, and envisioning my life having attained it. Cultivating it so as to bring it forth into the physical realm. As the saying goes, a vision without action is but a dream. It's the relentless pursuit that empowers our vision that gives it a fighting chance. So this Women's Herstory Month, let's all be inspired by our foremothers' daring and our own lived experiences to pursue what matters most. We are more resilient and powerful than we know. Now, let's get after it. Until next time, be good to yourself. And as always, power up. So long.
And you know, Corinne, of course. Yeah, you guys would have said before. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
But she was saying, like, her name's on there.
Kind of showed in how to Zoom this morning. And, yeah. So. I saw you had this face in come through. Nice to meet you. It's wonderful. You were quiet, so I didn't get to,
No, I was taking it.
How was your employment? I thought you guys were so sweet, man. You were. Well, nice to meet you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, I have
So you're
it.
not affiliated
When
with
you
the
sit down, I'll give it to
YMCA.
you.
So how did you find out about the event? Okay.
Yeah, Bob and fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the call. Okay, we'll talk. Thank you so much. Martine! When I saw your confirmation came down, I was so excited. I didn't even know that you were New York based. You looking at the playlist?
It's not connecting, so I'm gonna share the playlist with me and connect my.
Okay.
You didn't break the sweat.
I didn't even know.
I was telling her I was commuting. I'm always late. I was listening.
You were live streaming on the way here? Oh, you're so
I
good.
couldn't see her, but I heard her. So when I walk in and saw her,
Wait, how come you couldn't see her?
because I'm on the corner. And she is like
But they all work as a team. She and her two daughters. Yeah.
I couldn't believe when she started
Yeah?
killing it.
Let me go mingle and get some wine, girl.
Who did a tremendous amount.
Jack, I'm so glad you're here. Oh my goodness.
It's good to be here. Good to be here. Took a lot for me to get here.
I know. But you're here.
Yes.